that like if you're going to do something, you might as well do it to the best of your ability. So I was going 3-4 times a week, and I knew everybody else was probably only going to go about 2 times, and that's a lot. It is a lot of training. I'm not saying they didn't work hard, but I was like, if I just outwork everybody, like how is it possible that I would lose this fight?
Welcome to Discover with Spinatti, where we dive deep into the stories of individuals who inspire, innovate, and lead in their fields. Today, we're joined by a true local luminary, Jim Kelly, a man whose voice has not only graced the airways for over a decade, but has also touched the hearts of many through his multifaceted career as a host, comedian, and philanthropist. Co-host of the acclaimed Tass and Jim Show on FM 96, Y108 Hamilton, and Dave Rock's Kitchener, Jim's journey is one of laughter, creativity, and community. Beyond the microphones, he's the founder of Shut the Front Door Improv and Seriously JK Comedy, sharing stages with Canadian comedy icons and bringing smiles everywhere he goes. But Jim's impact doesn't stop there. His dedication to social causes, particularly in the fight to end homelessness, showcases a commitment to using his platform for the greater good. A storyteller, a comedian, and a voice for change, Jim Kelly embodies the spirit of making a difference while making us laugh. Get ready to learn, laugh, and be inspired as we welcome Jim to the show. Welcome, Jim, to Discover with Spinatti. Thank you so much for coming on.
Halim, thank you for that intro. Well done. Appreciate it.
Well, I mean, it's easy coming from a man such as yourself. So with regards to the show, the reason why I have the show is literally, as I stated, is to bring inspiration to people that want to do similar things to the people that are coming on the show, okay, to the guests. Mm-hmm. And so we talk about the experience, we talk about the stories, and we talk about the learning that guests, that when they come on the show, what they've experienced, because a lot of people, they give up very easily and they don't actually get to see the successes because they get demotivated. So I'm hoping to hear some of your struggles and stories and how you overcame them and how you became the star that you are. I mean, let's call a spade a spade.
Okay, well, no lack of struggles, that's for sure.
Okay, so with that being said, I do have a few questions I'm going to ask you. And so the first one, we'll start off right away, is looking back over your varied career in radio, comedy, and philanthropy, could you share a moment or experience that you consider your most significant failure, and what did you learn from it?
There's certainly been like a lot of failures over the years. It's kind of hard to call things failures, but yeah, definitely step backs, where you think you're progressing in one direction and then something happens and you actually have to take a step back and make a different change or something like that. So certainly there's been a lot of ups and downs over the years. I think with that question, one instance sticks out a little bit to me because it was such an emotional moment and like really was hard a pill to swallow at the time. Basically in radio, there's like a hierarchy that kind of works itself out a lot of the times. You start as an intern and then you work your way up incrementally from there. So it usually goes like you start as the intern and then maybe you get a job as the next step would be driving the summer cruiser vehicle around, where you get the logoed vehicle, you go to all the events. And then hopefully after that, once the summer's over, you can pivot that into an on-air announcer position. And that's like kind of what we were taught in school. It's like, that's kind of the trajectory you want to kind of get yourself on. Go to a smaller market, work your way up by doing everything, and then try to get on air. So I eventually did that. I was the intern, I was the summer cruiser guy, and then I finally got on air at this like rock station. It was my first on-air job. So I'm talking on weekends, introducing songs, telling stories and stuff like that. And a few months goes by and I get called into my boss's office and he says, we're taking you off the air and we're putting you on instead. We were replacing you with a guy with more experience and putting you on the AM station, and your new roles will be reading the obituaries and a couple other things. So like, I thought my life was on this path. I just got out of school, half a year, and I thought things were going well. And I was bragging to my friends, not bragging, but like excited to tell my family, hey, things are working out. I am going down this career path. And then I had to take this step back. Like, how's the weekend thing going on the rock station? I'm like, well, no, I'm actually reading the names of dead people and pronouncing a lot of them wrong because they're very complicated Dutch names. And I'm getting calls from angry seniors. And so it's not going great. But what that did was kind of made me realize that you can't, you have a vision in your head, and some things happen, some things change. Maybe somebody doesn't believe in you the way you thought they believed in you, or maybe somebody didn't have a path set out for you that you thought was set out in front of you. So you have to start making your own decisions and say, where do I want myself to go? How can I get myself on a path to success? So after that, I just started applying for jobs everywhere I could, making phone calls, begging people to like talk to me. And so I out of that resume spree that I went on, one of those resumes went to FM 96 in London. That inevitably got me the job on the weekends in FM 96, and then got me in the morning. So that step back, if that didn't happen, I don't know if I would have applied at that moment, and maybe my life would have been on a completely different path. So things happen for a reason, or maybe they accidentally happen and you just make the best of it. But that was a moment where I had to just take control of my own life and say, I got to do what's best for myself right now.
Now, was that ingrained in you? Like in terms of, because I mean, first landing a really nice job and then being taken away from it, seeing as how, someone said that you're not really that good, and then giving you something that most people don't want to do, which is reading the obituaries. Well, I mean, how did you still keep going? Why didn't you say to yourself, maybe this is not for me?
Well, I was always under the impression that like no matter what job you do, you got to do it to your best of your ability. So you still got to show up on time, and you still got to put the best effort forward. So I was still trying to stay positive, and I was still early in my career, but I did have a belief in myself just because I was surrounded by like friends and people who said you should be on the radio, you should be an actor, you should be doing these things. So I felt like there was some sort of talent there, and maybe I wasn't harnessing it or expressing it in the fullest of my capabilities. So I knew there was something, that I had some sort of skill, and I just figured like if I just like stuck with it, the radio thing, I didn't expect to make a lot of money or be famous or whatever. I just wanted to make as much money as like a construction worker or an electrician or a graphic designer, other fields I was thinking of. If I could just make jokes on the radio and just get there, I think that would be success. So I didn't have these crazy lofty goals. I just had a very kind of blue collar work ethic surrounding it. I have this skill. Can I use it to make money? Not an outrageous amount. I'm just trying to get by and have a fun life. So that's just kind of what I kept my eye on, was the prize and kind of a lifestyle that I was looking for.
And so you mentioned construction. You were working in construction before.
Yeah. I did like concrete, bridge construction, roofing, framing. I've done a lot of that stuff as a laborer.
And this was before you went into radio, or simultaneously? Because you said you were doing the rock station in the weekend.
Both, yeah. So I would, through high school and college summers, I would be working for various construction companies. My dad had a bridge construction company, so it'd be me and my brother and one or two other guys traveling 3 hours northern Ontario, sleeping in a trailer, and working really hard. And it was great, and I learned a lot. But I just realized that probably wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So we would drive up to these job sites listening to the radio for 3 hours. And so I was like locked into all these different radio stations all across Ontario and knew like all the stations, and always thought, oh, maybe that's something I could do someday. So that part of the construction helped me. But like even after college, when I was working at this small radio station, then moved to London, I was only on weekends, like you said. So again, it was back. I told myself I don't want to do construction anymore. I'm now a broadcaster, and I told myself, you can't apply for construction jobs. You're past that now. You got to move on. But when the wolves are knocking at the door, you got to make money. So I went back framing with this random guy who was a good dude. He gave me a job. So during the mornings, I would get to the job site at 7. I would come back and to work, or I'd come home around 5:30, and then a lot of times I'd be filling in on evenings, and I'd be working from then 7 till 11 p.m. and then going sleeping, then waking back up at 6 a.m. and doing it all again. So they were very long days, but I was making money, and I was learning a lot, and I was just happy to be doing radio and subsidizing it with the construction work. And then inevitably, when they offered me the morning show job, I was literally ripping out moldy insulation of a basement in Brantford. They're like, do you want this morning show job? I said, yes, God, please.
Did you have it in your mind that like set, because you said that, you had very high self-belief. Okay. So you had a lot of confidence in yourself, and I'm guessing because you said that you surrounded yourself with people that believed in you. Now, because you were doing all these side jobs, but you were also like, your goal was to end up on the radio. Where did you find the strong belief like in yourself that, hey, like I'm not going to give up or maybe you didn't have it. I don't know. Maybe walk me through it. Did you have this kind of thing in your mind where you said, look, I am not going to give up. This is going to be something I'm going to be doing. And did you see yourself, like, did you envision yourself as being a broadcaster, or is this something that you kind of just, you didn't give up long enough until it actually happened? Like, was it more
Yeah.
luck than it is something that you planned?
It was determination. I guess of a lot of it, maybe I don't know if pride is the right word, and it's kind of a negative term, but like I couldn't look myself in the mirror. Like after I put all this time into going to like broadcasting school, and I wasn't sure. I didn't say, I didn't look in the mirror and say I have to be a radio DJ. I just said I want to go out and I want to entertain people, and whether that's like either through being a stand-up comedian, a radio DJ, an actor, or a director, or an editor of film or something. I just wanted to be creative and express myself, and I knew like there's certain people, they play a sport and then they get up in the morning and they all they can think about is that sport, and they want to go play hockey, and it drives them, and they get like almost like a feeling, like a drug feeling, like a high when they're participating in it. And I would get a feeling if I was like telling a joke in front of a group of people or something, like with my buddies or at a party, or if there's a group of people laughing and you're contributing like a joke here and there, I would get like a high from that feeling. So I knew like there was something that I had a passion for. I have like an Irish background. I don't know if that matters up, but all my Irish family, the gift of the gab is what they say. And we'd be sitting around the dinner table and everybody was so funny, like my extended family to my cousins. And so I would try to chime in with jokes, and just anytime I would get a laugh, it would make me feel very happy. So I knew that there was something there that I got great satisfaction out of. So I wasn't sure if I'd be in front of the camera, behind the camera, but I knew I got a lot of satisfaction out of making people laugh and good conversation. So that's kind of where I steered it towards. And there was times where I couldn't afford the rent when I was working on weekends, and I had to call my mom and say I desperately need to borrow $200. And she said, Jim, like, why don't you become an electrician? Your Uncle Joe probably hire you. I said, I can't do it. I cannot stop. I'm still young enough. Like it'd be one thing if I was 50 and I was still chasing a dream that would never happen. And I don't even want to say that. There's no age on the dream. Whatever you want, you should always pursue it. But there's a realistic thing that might set in at a certain point in your life when you have to make an adult decision. Say I have to change career paths, but I wasn't there, and I refused to give up. I've always been very stubborn, very picky eater. You can't make me do something I don't want to do. So that kind of all goes together with it. And I was just determined to not fail, essentially.
And how did it make you feel to want to borrow money from your mom?
It was the worst. And it was from my mom because I couldn't call my dad to ask him, because he was so self-sufficient. Like his dad died when he was 16. He ran his own company. You can't tell him what to do because he's a completely self-sustaining man. So I always looked up to that. So I couldn't call him and ask him for money. So that is like when you have a lot of respect for your dad, you don't want to look as less of a man. And when you can't afford the bills, that hits you in the masculinity a lot of the time. And it hits anybody. It's not a masculine thing, but especially for me and my dad's dynamic, I just did not want to call him. So yeah, and he was always very supportive of me too. He loved the radio. He said, please don't turn out like Howard Stern. He wasn't a Howard Stern fan. He's an old school kind of conservative guy, but he was always very supportive. He's a big fan of music. And, but I could not ask him for money. So yeah, it was tough. And, luckily I do have a supportive family, and not a lot of people can say that. So I did have that opportunity, but I just made sure that if I ever got through this and I got over the hump, that I was going to help anybody else out if they needed it. So I just kept that mentality. It's like, it's not bad taking help if you're going to give help in the future. So just keep that mindset.
And so, okay, so you had to borrow money from your mom and you didn't want to tell your dad. So I'm guessing you told your mom not to tell your dad. What kind of feelings were you going through? Like at that point, like it's an embarrassment, I'm guessing, from you to want to ask your mom and to kind of avoid telling your dad. So what did you do? Like, did it inspire you to work harder? And how do you work harder in broadcasting? Like, what is it that you have to do to make sure that you make it?
I think basically the mentality is you have to make yourself irreplaceable, and you have to put yourself out there and just do as much as possible. And a lot of YouTubers have this mentality now, and they use a certain word. It's create content. So it's like, you have to go out there and do stuff, and you have to have enough skills that it's hard to replace you. So I went out and I would learn how to do Photoshop and how to edit video and different audio editing techniques, just to try to be as well-rounded of a broadcaster as possible. But like another thing I heard once from a separate broadcaster that I respected, and this was when I was in that cycle of I was roofing, and then it got to the fall, so I got laid off from roofing, and I had to find another construction job, and I was like in this cycle of stressing out about like where my next paycheck was going to come from. So I was like, I gotta get on a morning show. I just gotta start doing more on the radio thing. I gotta start leaning into that a lot more, even though I was putting in a good effort. But I was like, I gotta do more. So I bought a handheld recorder. This is before smartphones. Every smartphone had a recorder. So I went and bought a recorder. The London Knights were on a deep OHL run. They're going to the Mem Cup soon. So like the city was buzzing about the London Knights. So I just took that recorder. I went down to the London Knights Bud Gardens, and I just interviewed a bunch of drunk people on a Friday night, and they were all over the moon because they just won. So it was pretty easy audio to get. So everybody was loving it on the microphone. So I played that on my weekend show, and my boss at the time had heard it, thought, that's great audio. Can you send it to the morning show? So I emailed it to the morning show, and then that was the first time I was featured on the morning show. So, I took that advice, and it was like, do something, create audio. And if somebody else can use it and you're helping the team, that's even better. So I was just like, I got to start creating content. And then lo and behold, a few months go by, one of the guy on the morning show quits, and they're looking for somebody to be on the street to interview people, do questions during the show. Well, I had just done that a few months ago, and it turned out great. So it just got me my foot in the door to potentially be that character on the show. So just like one small choice, I spent $40 on this recorder, and it changed my life essentially.
So, and this leads to a really good question that I actually had pre-prepared. So broadcasting, comedy, and you did a lot of comedy. And public speaking, there are fields that are notorious for their highs and lows. What advice would you give to someone just starting out, especially in overcoming the fear of public speaking?
Yeah. The first thing is the only way you'll get over it is to go out and do it. It's one of the things that you can't learn on YouTube and practice at home. Well, you can practice in a mirror, but like truly, it's not the same unless you get out there and do it. So I had, during my college group, been listening to what were newly founded podcasts, and I was listening to comedians, and a lot of these comedians and broadcasters said the first thing you should do is take an improv class, because you learn how to listen and work with people instead of being a stand-up comedian and you're kind of being selfish and only working with yourself. You got to learn how to be around people and talk to people, listen to people. So I immediately want to take these improv classes. And what I learned from improv is that life is all about failure. Everything is like you can't do improv without failure. Every choice can't be perfect. So there are a lot of people who will come to the class and they'll freak out if they don't have the perfect answer. And I would say, whatever you said is the perfect answer. There is no perfect answer. Whatever you said is perfect, and whatever you said is what we're going with. And then we're going to add to it, and we're going to make you look good. So like once you get the trust of somebody in an improv class like that and say, hey, there are no mistakes. We're all in this together. Truly, if you fall, I will catch you. And that's the whole mentality behind improv. And maybe that's why it gets a little culty, but it is like super supportive. And in improv, there is no failure, because that failure, if you flub on stage, let's say a classic example, you say the wrong word, or you say, like I went to Brazil, I love that continent instead of country or something like that. That's maybe a mistake, but the improvisers will grab that and start saying other things are continents that aren't continents, or using the wrong word. And your mistake will actually turn into the comedy pattern they're repeating. And that mistake is now gold that we've polished, or a turd we should polish into gold. And so like no matter what, there are no mistakes in improv. So that was very freeing. And in a grand scheme of my thoughts about failure, when it comes to like choices you make in life, and everybody's failed, every athlete. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team in grade 9. These are famous stories of failure. And that's not failure in my mind. That's falling off the horse, getting back on the horse. The only failure is when you quit. Life is constantly 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe 2 steps back, 1 step forward, but you're never quitting until you never get on the horse again. So as long as you just keep at it, there is no failure. Just keep trying your best and stick with it.
Have you always held that belief system that there's no such thing as failure?
No, I think that was really hardest with improv. Like it just because I saw failure happen on stage, or I feel self-conscious about something, and then you can turn it into something good. Now, and it doesn't always happen like that, but if you have a mentality where you can not stress out on your mistakes and completely collapse when something doesn't go your way, it's a true superpower. So just something I've kind of learned over the years, and I've been very self-conscious my whole life too, and was worried about how people would perceive me in grade school and high school. I was always worried about what people were thinking of me, so I was constantly worried about failing or embarrassing myself. But it's freeing once you fail enough, your skin gets thick enough, and it's harder to hurt you.
And is this coming from how you were raised? Like, was it that your dad's mantra for him never to give up? Did you see that as an example, or was this something that you saw someone else? Did you? Because the reason why I'm asking is because a lot of people, and I know quite a few people that literally give up just from a few failures, maybe one or two, and then they kind of talk to themselves out of keep going, like consistency, or even
Mm-hmm.
the whole journey, right? Because as you know, and you've mentioned, failure is something that's going to happen whether or not you like it, as soon as you start anything.
Yeah.
So but you seem to take failure from the approach of, you get off, you fall off the horse, you get back on it. But many people don't have that. Was this something that you grew up seeing your dad do, or your mom do, or someone else do? Like, where did you, it's a very unique perspective that you had. But yeah, you also mentioned that you were very self-conscious growing up as a kid. So
Mm-hmm.
how did that transformation happen?
Yeah, I come from a big family, and I was the second youngest, so I was always trying to impress my older siblings, I think. And I think that's maybe where the self-consciousness comes from. And it's not like a super negative thing, because it makes you reflect a lot, or you don't want to obsess on how people think about you, but it is kind of important to know how you're presenting yourself in public to a certain extent. But and we come from a family of a lot of jokes, so you're getting made fun of a lot. So like my brother, who was 2 years older than me, best buddies now, and we were always friends, but he would pick on me. His friends would come around. I'd be the butt of all the jokes. So, you're constantly trying to be cool around all these older people that you like and you want to impress. So I was just like, always kind of had that mentality. Um, but like getting on and off the horse, I don't know. My dad was a very tough guy, and maybe I never really thought about it, but it probably is the reason why I have that mentality. He's very tough, very steadfast in his beliefs, whether it's political or religious. He never preached to you on either, but would, if you asked him his opinion, he would be a straight shooter. And, we did a lot of sports and a lot of athletic things like snowmobiling and stuff like that, dirt biking when we were kids. And if you fell off, he didn't care if you cried, but he was always like, dust yourself off. And I constantly remember him picking me and my brothers up, literally dusting us off from falling on the ground from doing something, and saying, "Are you okay? Yeah, okay, well, let's give it a shot again." And it's just kind of, unless you were seriously injured, you just kept on going. And that's, water skiing, you fall water skiing all the time. And it was kind of just how we went through life. I got stitches 8 times by the time I was 10. I was very
Oh.
accident prone. I was just doing like crazy stuff, and we were just climbing trees. And yeah, and when it comes to failure, you cannot learn without failing. If you do everything right your whole life, have you even learned anything? The failure moments are when you learn the most. That's how you learn how to not fall off the horse again, is when you've fallen off and you go, well, I don't want to do that again. So let's change things here.
And so now throughout your trajectory, right? I mean, you've failed, you've succeeded, and now you're on this, obviously, like, a lot of people know you, and you're on multiple shows, and now you've started, you've started your own improv show. I think two of them, correct?
Hmm.
The Shut the
Yeah.
Front Door and the JK Comedy.
Yeah.
What
I started
what
Shut the Front
happened?
Door,
Yeah.
retired, took a step back from improv. My life got busy. COVID happened, and I stepped away about 6 months before that. And then I missed it. And that group had moved on. I missed it. And then another people who had stepped away, we all kind of re-collaborated. We said, this was fun. Why don't we do this again? And then we started it up again. And so here we are doing improv comedy again in London.
And so, in terms of this improv comedy, so I'm guessing you're doing this with other people. I mean, who is this supposed to be towards? Who is it supposed to benefit?
It benefits, well, first and foremost, it is a form of entertainment, and generally improv is comedy. So first and foremost, we're there to make people laugh. But we're also there to make people feel. Like, the best comedy comes when you set an emotional level and like a baseline, and then you do the weird things in that frame. And so that's where the funny comes from. So we want people to believe in these characters when we're on stage. So we want people to feel multiple emotions. Most of that is happiness. But the reason why we do improv, I think, there's obviously a rush when you're on stage, but there's the collaboration of like-minded people is awesome. And it's not that rare, or it's not that common, I should say, when you go into a situation and the whole point is for the people around you to support you. There's a reason why the improv famous saying is yes, and you never say no. Basically, the rule is you say yes. So no matter what somebody says, you agree with it and try to add to it. So it's like a fun collaborative process that leads to a ton of laughs, and it makes you bond with your friends very closely. Like the people in my group are very close friends of mine now, and the people I used to improvise with, I'm still very close with them and still like have these strong feelings towards them because you're in the fire together and you feel supported. It's awesome. So we do it to entertain people, but we also do it for ourselves and to work out our mind a little bit and just to feel that social fun with friends.
In terms of collaboration, you've worked with a lot of Canadian comedy icons through your work, and you've engaged deeply with your community. How has this collaboration with others shaped your career and your own personal growth?
Yeah, I think when you're working with people, you there's always something to learn from somebody, even if they're more successful than you or less successful. People have different ways of doing things, so you keep an open mind. You can always learn something. So working with people like Colin Mockery, who is incredible. Just a super funny guy who I could never expect to be that funny as Colin Mockery. But what I did see him do, now that guy's a real celebrity. That guy's an international celebrity. But what I did see him do, I was about 26 at this time, kind of a new broadcaster. When we did the show with him, he shook everybody's hand there. He looked everybody in the eye. He was so nice to every single person, from the improvisers, the staff. He stayed with us late into the night till 2 a.m.
Wow.
Went way above and beyond, just being a good guy and answering your questions if you had them, and just being like totally open. He could have been a prima donna, I guess, and I wouldn't have judged him too much. He has all the right in the world to be an introvert and do whatever he wants after the show, but he was just the nicest, most approachable guy ever. And I was like, that's what I want to be. I never want anybody to be intimidated to come up to me. And I'm no Colin Mockery by any stretch, but that was just inspiring to see somebody on his level be so humble and so cool. So there are different skills you can learn from people, but then there's also like sets of behavior you can learn from people, and you go, I like that. What is he doing? Why do people react so much? What is the charisma? What is the secret behind his charisma? Oh, he shakes everybody's hand. He looks everybody in the eye. It's awesome. So, just little things like that, you learn how to connect with people better.
So and no doubt you've met other celebrities as well, and they've shaped your thinking and probably even influenced what you want to do in the future. What influenced you to get into the ring and use your platform to be the voice for the homeless?
Yeah, we did the Fight to End. I did it in November, and it has been going on. I think that was the third year it had happened. It took a break over COVID, but the first year it happened, I was asked to MC it. We were a media sponsor, and I've always been a UFC boxing fan my whole life. Never super hardcore into it, but would pay for a few pay-per-views here and there for the big fights. So when I saw the event, when I first walked in, I was like, this is amazing. It looks like Vegas in here. And then I saw everybody dressed up, and then I saw how great the fights were, and I saw the dedication that all the fighters put in, how much money they raised. I did a live auction in the middle of the ring where I would just yell out, it's going to single mothers, and they need a bed, and the bed costs $200. Does anybody here have $200? And 100 people would put their arm up to donate $200. And I'm not exaggerating. There was that many people who wanted to give their money to the cause. So I emceed it again the second year, and people were even more generous, and I was blown away. And just looking around, we all know that the homeless problem was getting out of control. It still is. The tent cities were popping up everywhere, and you go, this is something that needs to be addressed. I don't know how much money it's going to take, but I want to start talking about it. And I just, as long as we're talking about it, That's the important thing. So the third year, I would have been my third year participating. I said, it's time for me to get punched in the face. And I love sports too. I played a few sports growing up. So I was like, I'll get in there and give it a shot. So I'll take one for the team. So I mostly just kind of wanted to talk about the homeless issue as well. And it's a heavy topic. So it's kind of a lighthearted way to just remind people it's a problem. And I also just want to challenge myself and have some fun. And it certainly was successful in all those ways.
Well, I mean, you're being very humble, because I did see the fight and you kicked ass, and you were, I mean, I could tell that you really trained hard, because for someone to be so focused, I actually didn't expect it, and you didn't even let the other guy even come close to you. So tell me, just walk me through. I mean, obviously you have a lot of emotion and attachment to the cause. Okay, that's obvious. But in terms of your training, you went from, broadcasting, and now, training to be a fighter. You did it for 4 months, the training.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through, how did you, you said that you did a little bit of sports, but you didn't actually do fighting before. So how did you transition into that? And isn't there a fear attached to that? And how did you overcome that? There's going to be self-doubt that you overcame. And I saw the video of you in the ring. You looked like you were laser focused. You looked like a bulldog, right? I wouldn't want to be in the ring with you. So I mean, walk me through the process.
Again, I think it was fueled from a place of pride and self-consciousness, because everybody's putting themselves on the line in that ring right there, but not everybody's on the radio with a co-host who loves making fun of people when they screw up. And I say that with love out of Tass, because it's what we do. We poke fun at our buddies, and when they make a mistake, it's even better. And I saw our boss, who had fought the year before, he got the gears. He didn't do as well. So I was like, I cannot look myself in the mirror if I lose this fight. So again, it was from pure self-consciousness. I did not want to lose. So I was driven to get up in the morning and run to work. It sucked, but I got a bus pass. I would run to work, and then I would take the bus home. And I again, like I said earlier in our conversation, Halim, that if you're going to do something, you might as well do it to the best of your ability. So I was going 3-4 times a week, and I knew everybody else was probably only going to go about 2 times. And that's a lot. It is a lot of training. I'm not saying they didn't work hard, but I was like, if I just outwork everybody, how is it possible that I would lose this fight if I'm going twice as much as the guy I'm probably going to fight? So I just kind of kept that in mind. Stay in shape, eat right. Once the 4 months is over, you can be a bum again. Just get to the finish line and make it happen. And it's funny, because you said I came out like a dog, but I actually only came out like a dog in the second round. The first round, I kind of came out and I was like, hey, this is going to be fun and easy. And I didn't have that killer mindset. And I did get technically knocked down in the first round. And I thought I was better than my opponent, and I believed I was, but I didn't come in with the eye of the tiger into that first round. So my coach in the corner said, I've seen you do better, Jim. It's not your finest work. You need to get out there and you need to knock him out. And I was just like, yes, sir. So again, I just flipped the switch and I went to psycho mode, and I was like, dude, you are not losing this fight. Your wife is in the crowd, and she will not let you see her naked for the 5 years probably if you embarrass her. So I just started making these things up in my head, just like Michael Jordan, make it personal. I just got in there and I was like, okay, I'm not losing this fight now. And so I just flipped the switch. But it was
okay. So you had a lot of pride and self consciousness, and you didn't want other people to make fun of you, and you saw your boss doing it the year before, and you didn't want to lose. Okay. But you said you came on the ring, and you got hit a few times, but then after that you terminated it. I saw it. It was actually pretty good. It was really good. Now, if someone wants to get into the ring, okay, and this goes to anything in life, right? The ring of life. If someone wants to get into the ring, but they're really afraid of doing it because they're afraid of being punched, right? Because it hurts. What would you tell that person?
Scars heal, but glory never fades. No, I don't know. I think that's a country song.
Is that from your Irish background?
Yeah, I think that's a random country song. I don't know, but no, I get it. Fear is a very motivating thing, and it can stop people in their tracks a lot of times. It's interesting what people are scared of. They say the number one fear in the world is public speaking. So I mean, people a lot of times would rather get punched in the face than stand up in a podium in front of people. But really the only way to get over a fear is exposure therapy. If you're scared of spiders, I'm sorry, but you got to stick your hand out and you got to let a spider crawl on your arm. And if you just let it do it once, the next time you see a spider in your house, you are maybe it's 5% less likely to jump on a chair and run or whatever, but it's a step in the right direction. And it does suck. If you're scared, that's good. If you're scared, that means you're trying something new and you're in new territory, and life is boring when you don't try anything new. So fear is fine. All it means is that your body's on high alert and you're pumping adrenaline, and that your brain is probably going to work a little harder, a little faster. I don't really know much about biology, but like I feel like if you're scared, you're probably time slows down a little bit and your body is just hyper focused. So try to harness it and use the fear as motivation.
Well, Jim, you're fearless. I mean, that should be your nickname, fearless, because you approach everything with that. I know you're into comedy, you're into public speaking, broadcasting, and you have a very light heart, but you do have a fearlessness in you. Like you're a bulldog. Um, with people that don't have, a lot of people don't have that kind of mentality, and they're not very, they don't have the privilege of having siblings and having a family that gives them that thick skin over time, or even seeing their fathers, struggle and never give up. What is it that, if you were to really look at that kind of person, coming from, underprivileged home, low socioeconomic background, they don't have much, they feel like they don't have much to look forward to. What kind of advice would you kind of give them? They don't have all this support. What
Mm-hmm.
would be the first thing that you would tell them?
I think first thing I would do is I would reassure you that everybody has something. Everybody's got a little spark in them, and some have more, some have less, but everybody's got something to offer this world. And a lot of people know what they could offer, but are too self-conscious to tell anybody. Like if they think I'm an artist, they're like, oh, that's stupid, I don't want to say it. So you have to be honest with yourself first, what you think you're good at and what brings you happiness. Maybe a lot of people don't find happiness in anything. What makes you less miserable? What part of your day is the best? Or what do you look forward to? Anything. Just focus on that. And it's not an easy thing to say, but try to surround yourself with people who understand and support you. And it's not easy to do. That's why you just have to keep your eye out on people who you can trust and try to keep them in your life. Don't exile them or don't not respond to their texts or anything like that. Keep the people who care about you in your life. And it can be tough, and especially if you don't have a supportive family, you're not used to that dynamic. So you just gotta keep a good crew around you as long as possible. Maybe people will come in and out, but keeping an eye out for those people. And just as a metaphor, like there are people who, like myself, are perhaps more bulldogish, or there's introverts and there's extroverts. Well, in improv class, there are so many introverts. Introverts are so funny because they often have only a small group of friends, but they all have really unique senses of humor. So there's two people who would come into the improv class a lot of times, and are two different archetypes. The introverted, potentially, for lack of a better term, the geekier introverted person, and I'm a proud geek myself. I say that with no mean spirit. And then the office guy, who's like the funny guy at the office, who's got the nicknames and he's got all the confidence in the world. That introvert, 9 times out of 10, is so much funnier when it comes down to it than that very confident guy, because he's thinking about himself and how he can be funny. And that introvert is thinking, how can I help the people around me? I don't want the spotlight on me. I'm just going to do my little part here. And that's so much more important than wanting the spotlight on yourself. So maybe you won't be the star. Maybe you won't have the spotlight. But if you do your position very well, you will have a spotlight shone on you for a job well done. So just keep doing what you do well, and if you keep at it, eventually somebody will recognize that, and I think you will be reimbursed with it, either just through personal joy, personal satisfaction, or hopefully a job. Maybe you can make money out of it, but just keep your eye on something that you really enjoy doing. And if you're working in a factory, you're doing something you don't enjoy, stick with it. Just remember, life comes in chapters, and there's always another chapter in the future. So you got to keep your eye on something and march towards it. And even if you don't end up there, at least you're marching towards something, and you're leaving behind where you came from in a positive way. So you're always going somewhere, and whether that path goes like this or this, you're kind of always heading towards something.
So Jim, what's next for you? Would you? I mean, yeah. I mean, would you share that with us? Tell us what's
Yeah.
next. I mean, you've done quite a bit, but what's next for you?
I'm going strong here with the Tass and Jim Show. I love it. I would love for that show to be even in more markets across Ontario. So, Taz and I are working to put the best product on the radio as well. In the future, I would like to do. I have plans. Maybe I shouldn't say them out loud, but I do have plans to do a local series of videos featuring artists. So we're setting up a studio right now where we're going to have a producer mixes the mix, and then we're gonna have artists come in and bands come in and do live music to try to support more local music in London. Also, it's in the back of my mind, but I do want to write a screenplay. I've always wanted to write a screenplay. And so I bought a book on how to write a screenplay. I'm watching some YouTube videos, and I like to just kind of keep something that I'm obsessed with. I get obsessed with. I was just obsessed with boxing. My whole algorithm is all YouTube videos, so I got to get rid of that. I got to move it to something else. And now it's how to write screenplays and stuff like that. I like getting obsessed with things and focusing on those for a while. So that's my new obsession, is how to write a screenplay. Will it ever turn into anything? I don't know, but I feel like it'll be cathartic just to get one out and see how it's done.
I'm sure it's going to turn out really great. Now, I have to ask you this question because you talked about screenplays and you talked about producing. What do you think, or how do you think AI, I have to ask this, how do you think AI is going to maybe be a help or somewhat with the whole fear of AI taking over? I mean, what do you think in terms of the future with AI and broadcasting and radio and even producing?
It's hard to say right now. So far, I've been intrigued, confused, and scared of it all at once. I mean, the most recent, I believe it's called Sora, where you can just type, a multi-faceted prompt into it, and it will show you high quality video. What that does, I don't know. I really think AI, it can repeat things that it's heard before, and it can write things that have already been written. But what it can't do is express the human soul and be truly honest and emotional. It can only replicate the human soul. So I guess all you can do is make things that are authentic and honest and human, and is make them authentic as possible, because it's going to help lazy cheaters right away. I can tell you that. It's going to help the laziest people right away, and that's going to be great for a lot of us. It's going to help our lives in a lot of ways. But when it comes down to like what's going to be quality music or quality novel and a quality movie, I have yet to see AI write something that's truly profound or moving or could bring me to tears. But that could happen. But who knows? A story from your neighbor is still far more compelling than anything you can ask ChatGPT at this moment.
That's true. That's true. It hasn't developed to that extent yet. But I'll tell you something. As a dentist, I do fear for my job with regards to robotics, and seeing as how robotics are getting developed and improving at a super fast rate. And I've actually seen arms literally autonomously place implants into someone's jaw. So,
No,
I mean, it's only a matter of time before
it's funny
I start looking for another job.
People constantly thought, oh, first the thing that AI is going to do is build houses and construction and road work or work in a factory, but it's now creating art, writing songs, making videos, all the creative outlets I thought were untouchable. So it's completely backwards. So you're probably still okay for a bit. And I'd be worried if I was a graphic designer, which I almost was. So, and now I type a thing in. Anyway, it's crazy. It's a great question, Halim. The honest answer is I don't know. But I think we should, at least, it's not going anywhere. So we got to embrace it somehow.
I have to ask you also, okay, TikTok's huge, and I've seen your page and you're not posting enough. Why?
You know what? I was turned off by TikTok because like at first we were told it was like Chinese spyware, so I always had like a chip on my shoulder against it. And then I realized they're all spying on us. You tell me Facebook and Instagram are spying on us too. I don't trust any of them. So you know what? You're right. I should be posting more on TikTok. I do love editing video and telling stories in video. It's very satisfying, chopping things up and telling a story that works. So you're right, Halim. I will take that as advice. I should be doing it more. I have no valid excuse other than laziness.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you something. I was really searching, trying to find content from you. And I couldn't find too much. I really couldn't. One of the things that I found, which was absolutely hilarious, was when you're using certain city names in Ontario and you created a story out of it. And I think you did that twice.
Yeah.
It was like I mean, it was basically viral, but
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy has, like, obviously this niche is getting his voice everywhere. Why isn't he doing it more often? Like,
I
that was my
know.
question.
Yeah, I know it's, you know, it is awesome and it's so satisfying when you see those views rack up and stuff like that. Maybe it's because I haven't been able to monetize it. I just do it out of passion. So like if I have an idea, I'll do it. And I'm lucky enough that I scratch like that creative itch almost every morning, Monday to Friday, with a radio show and like doing improv. So I am able to scratch like that creative itch, and then sometimes you know, I feel like I've used an outlet and then I am less motivated to do more stuff. But that is something that I every year, like during my year-end report when I'm talking to my manager, I'm like, I want to do more videos. And it just, you know, it rarely happens. But yeah, you're right. I should step up, and because they're super fun to do, and it's just that's the way the world is working too. So I would love to do videos where people watch the video, enjoy it, and then say, who is this guy? I also want to listen to that radio station. So that's the game plan.
It'd be an excellent promo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Jim, for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been great having you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for the